It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of June 25th, 2004. We got 4 movies to look at today, and they are certainly some doozies. We've got the most controversial film of the year, one of the dumbest comedies you'll ever see, one of the most beloved romantic dramas of all time, and then you've got a movie with 2 lions in it. And, yeah, you might be surprised at which ones actually have held up better 20 years later, so, let's go ahead and start off with the controversial film, the biggest new release of the weekend, which had a lot of controversy behind it. Michael Moore's follow-up to Bowling for Columbine, and that is Fahrenheit 9/11.
You can make people do anything if they're afraid.
The FAA has taken the action to close all of the airports in the United States.
All commercial and airline traffic was grounded.
But we had some airplanes authorized at the highest levels of our government to pick up Osama bin Laden's family members and transport them out of this country.
In the middle of the war, corporations decided to hold a conference to figure out how much money could be made.
Once that oil starts flowing, it's going to be lots of money. Whatever it costs, the government will pay you.
It's going to be good for business, bad for the people.
Congressman, trying to get members of Congress to get their kids to enlist in the Army and go over to Iraq.
The USA Patriot Act allows for searches of medical and financial records.
It gives law enforcement almost unlimited power.
They wait till the middle of the night. It's printed in the middle of the night.
How could Congress pass this Patriot Act without even reading it?
Sit down, my son.
We don't read most of the bills.
No one read it.
Members of Congress, this is Michael Moore. I would like to read to you the USA Patriot Act.
Let the eagle soar.
From the corridors of power
Congressman? Congressman?
to the streets of small-town America to the front lines.
This is an impressive crowd, the haves and the have-mores. Some people call you the elite. I call you my base.
Comes the true story that will make your temperature rise.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Don't you remember those days when George W. Bush was considered to be the biggest threat to democracy? Oh, good times, good times. Certainly a lot better than today, but I digress. Fahrenheit 9/11. This is, like I said, the follow-up from Michael Moore after Bowling for Columbine, won him an Academy Award. And the subjects of the film, as you can tell, are the presidency of George W. Bush, the Iraq War, the media's coverage of the war, and more states that American corporate media were cheerleaders for the 2003 invasion of Iraq and did not provide an accurate or objective analysis for the rationale of war and the resulting casualties there. There are so many controversies with this movie in particular. I swear we would be here all night long talking about them. But there are a lot of controversies to the film, specifically. Most notably, one of the big ones is the fact that this was a highly praised movie when it came out and should have been easily the frontrunner for Best Documentary Feature. However, Michael Moore decided to air the movie on television the month before the 2004 election, which basically eliminated the chances of it being nominated for Best Documentary, because the Documentary Film Board basically said that if it's on TV before they essentially said if the documentary's on TV before it's eligible for awards consideration, it's considered ineligible. It was something like that. And then Michael Moore basically said, well, fine, I don't want the Documentary Feature Award. I'm going to go for the big prize, Best Picture, man. I mean, this movie is going to be it. And, yeah, spoiler alert, this did not get a Best Picture nomination. So, yeah, good job, Michael Moore. You kind of thought too much of this movie, especially when you consider also the fact that, yeah, he thought that this would be the movie that would basically get Bush out of the White House, and far from it, because Bush won. I think he essentially won in a landslide, if I remember correctly. It wasn't as crazy as the first time he got elected, of course, but when George Bush went up against Al Gore. But John Kerry really did not have a chance whatsoever. I mean, this was around the time where you still had people who were still rooting for George Bush, mostly because of what he did for 9/11, how his popularity was very high at that point, and then even as his downward turn came with the war in Iraq, he was still seen as the better option over John Kerry, and basically, that's basically for what this movie had to. Yeah, this movie really did not do what I think they wanted it to do with it. And I did remember going to see this movie when it came out. I mean, this was a movie that everyone was talking about. This was still around the time when I went to go see these movies. I went to go see movies on my own for the first time, and I thought, you know what, this would be something interesting to talk about here. But even though even though I had no outlet to really do this with, I thought I'll go check it out, see if it's worth it. And I mean, at the time, I thought it was all right. 20 years later, I don't know, it really does not hold up well over time, honestly. I mean, I get what Michael Moore was trying to do here. I mean, it was essentially the idea was that this movie would be bad enough for people to go look at it and realize that, wow, George Bush is a complete monster and should not be in the White House. And like I said, it didn't really work out that way in the long run because he essentially got reelected in, I think, if I remember right, it was kind of a landslide, sort of. Because I don't think John Kerry was even close in some places, but yeah, this was a movie that had controversy all around to it, and the film, for the time, I thought was alright, but as I've watched it 20 years later, it really has not held up well over time, especially when you consider what politics has essentially become nowadays. And I don't want to make this whole political area, a whole political section here. I mean, I don't want to get into that kind of territory. We kind of have to with this movie, because the stuff in here is pretty controversial. I mean, everyone remembers the scenes where, you know, when George Bush is hearing about the September 11th attacks for the first time, and he's in an elementary school in Florida, and he really doesn't know what to do at that point. I mean, he's sitting there in a classroom with all these children, and, like, he's just sitting there, like, what, like, how do you take that in? It's just, like, you kind of, and at the same time, you kind of agree with the way he was going in that direction, because, like, what are you supposed to tell these little elementary school kids? Is that the world's is like it's a really tough thing to say and do at that point. And at the same time, I kind of agree that that's probably a move I would have done if I was president and something like that happened. Like, I don't know what I would have done in that situation, really. Which I think Scary Movie 4 actually parodied that pretty well here. And of course, you got that scene at the end of the trailer where George was just talking about, like, we got to stop these terrorists. We got to stop these terrorists. And then it comes back and it's like, now watch this drive. Like, the movie still has those little funny moments that still do kind of hold up. As far as the rest of the film itself goes, like I said, considering where we're at now with politics, it's a film that really has not held up well over time. It's not bad per se. Like, it isn't something where I say it's a bad movie in general, but it's definitely a film that, for the time it was coming out, for the zeitgeist period that it was coming out, it works. But watching it 20 years later, it's one of those films that really does not hold up well over time, honestly, especially with the way the world is now. But so yeah, it's a movie that really has not aged well, pretty much. But so that's Fahrenheit 9/11 for you. So let's go ahead and let's get away from that, and let's get to a movie that really does not hold up well over time, and that is The Wayans Brothers. And it even held up back when it came out. The Wayans Brothers, starring in White Chicks.
FBI agents Marcus and Kevin Copeland have been assigned to protect the heiresses to a multi-billion-dollar fortune.
If the kidnapper strikes, we will be ready. All you gotta do is pick them up and drop them off.
Now,
You don't actually think we're gonna go to the Hamptons looking like that?
to catch their kidnappers,
One more screw up and me and you are through. You know them girls ain't gonna be there.
oh, they'll be there. They'll have to do the unthinkable.
Yo, what's up, money? You got a problem? Nah, yo, hold my poodle, huh? Hold my poodle, dog. What, you want some of this? You want some of this? What, you don't want none of this, son? I'll take the both of you.
I think I don't need to show you much more of that, because I think you pretty much got the gist of this movie in general. $100 million hit, even though it's seen as one of the worst comedies ever made. But that is White Chicks for you, and I think that a little bit right there pretty much tells you everything that's wrong with this movie. You have the Wayans brothers, Marlon and Sean, playing two black male FBI agents who go undercover as white women by using whiteface to protect two hotel heiresses from a kidnapping plot targeting socialites. And, yeah, how these two were able to pull this off is just something where you really... Here's the thing. you have to go into this movie knowing how stupid it is. And if you can accept the stupidity for what it is, you're probably going to enjoy it. I saw this in the theater too. Like I saw it because I like the Wayans brothers. I liked In Living Color. I liked the scary movie films. I liked a lot of their comedy. And the stupid 15-year-old me went to see it. At the time, thought it was funny, but I didn't really have a keen. I really didn't have a keen idea of about movies in general. I mean, I knew about movies in general, but seeing more of these, I was only like going to the movie theater was pretty much a fun opportunity, especially going there by myself. But as time has gone on, I've realized that this is one of those movies that I regret probably saying is a good movie, and but again, it's one of those movies where you have to go into it knowing it's stupid. If you know it's stupid right off the bat, you're probably going to have a good time with it. But me personally, it's a film that really is. It's a film that really is about as lazy as it gets. Everyone in this movie acts like an idiot. There's no common sense placed in this movie whatsoever. The jokes really aren't that funny. I mean, it's just a film that is just so. It is literally what you think it's going to be. The only there's one thing that this movie has that makes it work in the long run, and that is, of course, Terry Crews, who has probably the best laughs in the entire movie. And I mean, he was the best thing about Friday After Next. This was when he was slowly but surely building his resume as a comedic actor, and it was showing that in these movies where they may have not been great, but you know what? He's the one thing that you remember from those movies being the funniest things. And yeah, how can you not like him in this movie? I mean, he's so funny in here. Even everybody else in the movie is very funny, but at the same time, they're just not given anything funny to do. And it's a pretty lame movie in general, and it really does not make any sense why they thought this was a good idea from the get-go. Like anybody with a brain could this isn't like Dumb and Dumber, where Dumb and Dumber was dumb, but it was at least smart in its dumbness. This is just plain dumb. Like, this is more dumb than Dumb and Dumber. I mean, like, how many times can I say dumb? Take a drink. How many times I say dumb in this? But yeah, this is a really dumb movie. And yeah, it's a film that really has not held up well over time. It's not. I don't think it's as funny as people make it out to be. It's become a cult classic over the years, and quite frankly, I can't see why. Because I don't know, man. It's just not funny to me. Like, I still don't find it amusing, except for the stuff with Terry Crews. But other than that, though, it's just a movie that really is about as lazy as it gets. I think if you go into it knowing how stupid it's going to be, you have a good time with it. But me personally, it's a film that really has not resonated well and held up as well as it should over the last 20 years. It's a movie that's it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Probably the worst movie we have on this particular show this week. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is a much better film than White Chicks. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams in The Notebook.
Tommy, you saw her. What are you doing tonight?
I'm busy.
Well, what can I do to change your mind?
He would love her forever.
You are 17 years old. You don't know anything about love.
It's not for you.
Now he'll do anything to get her back.
I rode you every day for a year.
You wrote me?
Yes.
I have a fiance waiting for me.
This is not about keeping your promise. It's about following your heart.
Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Marsden, The Notebook, rated PG-13. Special sneak preview this Saturday.
This is the movie that basically made Nicholas Sparks a box office draw because everybody was trying to make any of his books into the next big hit, and that lasted a good chunk of time too. I mean, 15 years after this movie came out, it was kind of everyone was trying to make the next Notebook, and nobody can really top what they did with this movie because you got two great leads, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, at the forefront here. Because Ryan Gosling was slowly but surely building his legacy, and Rachel McAdams had already started building her legacy with Mean Girls a couple weeks prior. They both star as a young couple who fall in love in the 1940s, and their story is read from a notebook in the present day by an elderly man played by James Garner, telling the tale to a fellow nursing home resident played by Jenna Rollins. And you find out that these two were essentially the same couple here, and you know. It's very sappy. It's a very sappy film that pretty much is a straightforward chick flick, but it's definitely one of the better chick flicks in general, mostly because you really like the chemistry between Gosling and McAdams. I mean, these two do work off each other really well here. You do really get involved in their storyline, even though it is a very formulaic storyline in general. You've also got a cast that includes James Marsden, Joan Allen, Sam Shepard, Kevin Connolly. A good cast in general, and a film that really it is what it is. But but it is definitely one of the better interpretations of how to tell this story. It's about to tell like a sappy romantic story, but do it in a way where it has mass appeal to it, because you do get, like I said, you do get invested in these two in the past. But the big reveal about the relationship later on down the road, which you can kind of figure out going forward, and even then, it's still very well done. It's a very well put together film. All the performances are great. Nick Cassavetes directed this movie. He does a very good job of handling the storyline in general. It's a really good movie, man. It really is a good adaptation of a Nicholas Sparks storyline. Of Nicholas Sparks' book, I should say, but it's a film that definitely works because you've got some great performances, a really engaging storyline here, and some good moments that, you know, it's one of those movies where if a guy like me is starting to tear up thinking about the ending of this movie, that should tell you how well they did this film. It's one of those movies where they perfectly handled it well. I can't recommend it enough, man. It's a really good movie. That definitely is much better. I think it's a lot better than some people may think of it, because it was a big hit when it came out. It didn't get the best reviews in general. It actually got mixed reviews when it came out in theaters, but it's definitely a film that has held up well over time, and it is definitely one of the best romantic dramas of the last couple of decades. It's a really good film that definitely deserves a lot more attention. Not more attention than it's already gotten as it is, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. It's a really good movie. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie here. A movie that I do remember seeing in theaters, and then I almost immediately forgot about it. This is Two Brothers.
For Kumal and Sangha, the jungle was the only home they'd ever known. Until the day... What are you doing here? They were taken from their family. On June 25th, experience their incredible journey home.
They're just trying to find their way back.
Two Brothers, rated PG, starts June 25th.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that I do remember seeing it in a theater, and I saw the trailers for it on TV. For some reason, I got attached to it, and I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, because I never heard of this director before I saw this movie. You know him as Jean-Jacques Annaud, who also did... He also did the very similar film The Bear. He did stuff like Quest for Fire, 7 Years in Tibet, The Lover, Enemy at the Gate. So he's made a lot of movies that were well received. And this is a movie that was received well by critics, but almost kind of faded into obscurity almost immediately after it came out. And like I said, it's been 20 years since I saw this movie, and I watched it again getting ready for this. You have a story here where you have two Indonesian tiger brothers named Kumal and Sangha, who were separated from their parents as cubs. They reunite a year later as adults to find their way back home. And you've got Guy Pearson here, and a young Freddie Highmore, who was about to have who's also having kind of a good overall year, because he would do this. Then following that, he'd be in Finding Neverland, and then the next summer he'd be in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So it's basically 1 year's worth of really solid films that really established his career. But I remember liking the movie when it came out, and I bought it on DVD. Was when it came out. I think I got it for Christmas, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I never watched it, and I got rid of it because I never watched it again. And I don't know why I never did. I don't know. It just went. I mean, I liked it the first time I saw it for a one-time watch, but watching it again, I really am thinking to myself, why the hell did I get rid of this movie? Because this movie actually is pretty damn good. I mean, it's not quite as good as some of Jacques Amin's other works, like The Bear or Quest for Fire, but this is a really solid film. And you do get attached to the two lions in here. They work off each other. The two lions are very fun to watch. Guy Pearce is very good in the film, and so is Freddie Highmore, showing off what he can do in general. And it looks authentic, too. It doesn't feel like a film that's using a lot of CG in general. It doesn't feel like a film that's going too chaotic when it needs to. Because we've seen movies like this where they have all these different animals in here, and it goes completely haywire and goes completely wrong. Roar is one of the best examples of that. The family adventure that turned into this real-life horror movie for the people involved. But we're still a couple of years away from that getting an official release. But yeah, this movie is far different than that, except it's more sweeter, it's much more family friendly, it's a very charming movie. The cinematography in general is really good here. This cinematographer, Jean-Marie Dugeot, I think he's one of the same cinematographers who did The Bear as well. If it's not him, then it's a really good... No, it's not him. It's Philippe Rousseau, who did, I think he did the Lord of the Rings movies, did that one. maybe this isn't a good director that's done a lot of movies with him, but he does a pretty good job of handling this. The music by Steven Warbeck's very good. It's a very entertaining movie. It's a light comfort movie too. Like, you can watch it, and it's a film that really, you do get attached to it very much, because it is a very charming film. The lines are very good to watch. I mean, the actors are very good. It's a movie that I really am questioning why I got rid of it. Maybe it's because it is one of those movies that maybe it just needs to sit for a long period of time, and then when I have to do something like this, I try to find it again, and it's just like, this movie is a lot better than I remember it being. It's a movie that, yeah, it's a film that I think deserves a lot more attention than it gets. It's a movie that I think is very good. The lines are very good to watch. The atmosphere is very good. It's a really engaging film. I recommend it. It's a film that's very underrated. It's definitely one that you should definitely check out. Two Brothers. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We will jump into the 4th of July weekend, halfway point of the year, with 5 big new releases. The biggest one, of course, being Sam Raimi's sequel to Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2. We also have Helen Mirren and Robert Redford in The Clearing. DeLovely with Kevin Kline and Ashley Judd. The sequel to Before Sunrise, Before Sunset with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy once again. And the Disney documentary America's Heart and Soul, which is very convenient because there was a big storyline that I feel like is that should be mentioned when we talk about this one. So we'll get to those films on the next episode. So check that out. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plays on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. And I will get to this week's Time About the Movies flashback. I know I said that I was going to do it after I posted the last episode, and I just completely forgot about it. But that is coming up later on after I post this up. So be on the lookout for that. And if you saw that particular episode, you know which movies I'm talking about. But if you don't know, January 22nd, 1988, I think it is. So either the 22nd or the 15th. But either way, there will be a Time About the Movies flashback episode coming up, and that will be right after this, for reals this time.